been doing the research on the Moors. Coming down here, I was talking to the brother, I forget the brother's name, hopefully he'll forgive me, brother who waited for, well actually we were trying to find each other for about 45 minutes. But I was telling him that when you know essentially the legacy of the Moors, the legacy of African people as it relates to European history, European culture, a lot of Europeans will back off. In fact, most Europeans who are educated will back off. They'll even concede, essentially, who, we often say, you the man. I can't say nothing to you because you woke up, obviously. Because you essentially, telling them things that, well, now you tell me more than I want to know. On the plane coming in, I sat next to this European fellow who was asking me what I did and so forth, and I told him, but then I started to continue to talk. And then I went on and on. He said, the Moors, I don't know too much about thank you, brother, too much about the Moors. Just that they were Muslims, right? I said, well, yeah, the vast majority of them were Muslims, but they were also people of other faiths. And he says, well, that's interesting. I said, but the Moors are also in Ireland. And then he started to kind of move around in the seat, because he had also equated the Moors with Spain, and Spain only. So I said, no, actually the Moors went up into Ireland and County Cork. In fact, I said, and there were even continued attacks on the coast by Moorish corsairs as late as the 16th century. And a lot of these people intermarried with those Irishmen living in Ireland. I said, and when you look at names like Moor, which is pretty obvious, you see it. Or Scottish or Irish names that have the MC on the front, whether it's Mick or Mac, that's a reference to the Moors. So MacDougall and McConnell and McMarion and McMurray, etc. There's a reference to an African progenitor there. So the first slide I have up here is from Alfonso X, also known as El Sabio, or the Wise One. He was a Catholic monarch, 13th century, who after about 500 years of a Moorish presence, and let me just say who the Moors were. The Moors invaded the Iberian Peninsula, and let me be specific, the Islamic era Moors, because there were Moors before there was the religion called Islam. But the Islamic era Moors invaded the Iberian Peninsula in 711 of the Common Era. And they proceeded to transform the very nature of the environment. The Moors brought with them a postal system. The Moors brought with them an educational structure, which essentially is what the contemporary university is modeled after. The teaching of secular and what we called secular, as well as holy or religious knowledge. The Moors brought with them their skills in metalwork, their skills in medical surgery and pharmacology. The Moors brought with them their skills in horsemanship. All these things which would later become part of Spain. All these things which would prepare Spain for leading the European world, unfortunately, in taking over so much of the world, because they were using the resources that the Moors had given them. But the Moors invade from northwest Africa, and Alfonso X is one of the Catholic monarchs who recognizes that if we as Catholics, I'm talking now as Alfonso X, if we as Catholics are going to be able to deal with this Moorish presence, we have to study their stuff. We got to understand their sciences, because we're losing people. There were people complaining as early as the 10th century about these so-called good Catholics no longer being able to speak Latin or even know anything about, Catholic liturgy. They're all going over to the Moorish camp. And the reason is because the Moors are the ones, as the doctors, who are actually engaging in some knowledgeable techniques in surgery and medicine. So, what's the choice? You know, somebody tells you, say, I'm sick. One person says, well, you know, let me see. It could be that you have a blockage in an artery or something. Where is it? What you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Blockage in an artery. Somebody told me up there it was because they're evil spirits. I need to go and pray or say 12 Hail Marys. Which, of course, doesn't hurt if you're a Catholic, but it also makes some sense to go and get some real medical knowledge, medical skill, medical help. And this was the problem. So they started losing people. Alfonso X then commissioned the translation of several Moorish texts, medical texts, mathematical texts, philosophical texts, religious texts, had them translated from Arabic into the developing Spanish vernacular, meaning the Spanish language, as well as Latin and French, and had these books then distributed throughout the Catholic world. He was trying to bring the Catholic world, the Christian world of Europe, up to snuff with what the African Muslims had achieved. This is one of the pages from the chess book. Now I note this. People customarily are confused about the Moors in terms of the ethnicity. Many European histories treat the Moors as if they were Arabs who came directly out of the Arabian Peninsula. And we know that that isn't true. While it may be true that there are Arabs who have Moorish ancestry or Moors who have Arab ancestry, an Arab and a Moor are not synonymous. This particular page from El Sabio's chess book shows people sitting playing chess. Those are Moors. Because someone wears a turban, which appears to look like it should be Arab in origin, doesn't make them an Arab, any more than me wearing a French suit makes me a Frenchman. So we need to understand that when you look at something, you need to look beyond just the physical image and ask yourself, well, what was the history behind that era in order to understand it?